Hi everyone, this is Cotic's new Cascade, which launched this month. It's a rugged and versatile adventure bike, and it's just the thing for multi-day off-road epics or just bumming around the local woods and bridleways. There are mounts for everything here, and you get a dropper post with hidden routing and a rigid fork that you can swap for a suspension one without messing up the geometry. In this vid, we're going to look at some of the tech and also give you our first ride impressions. We were lucky enough to get it a few weeks ahead of the launch, so we've already put a good few miles into it. First things first, what is it? Well, it's a drop bar adventure bike made with butted Reynolds 853 steel main tubes and a 4130 rear end. Cotic already has a hardtail mountain bike, the SolarisMAX, and also the Escapade, which is a road and gravel bike. The Cascade sits in between the two basically, so you get drop bars, space for big tyres and lots of ways of attaching stuff. I've been mostly riding the Cascade up on the tracks of Salisbury Plain for the past few weeks, so this first ride is actually based on much more than just one ride. It's pretty varied up there. 1 minute you're riding on well-graded gravel, the next you're faced with a zillion potholes, then you find yourself splashing through a muddy section and you might dive into the woods for a bit. It's so varied up there, and it's the perfect terrain for a bike that's designed to handle pretty much anything off-road without giving up too much for the road bits. My experiences of riding the Cascade have been overwhelmingly positive. The bike is almost comically cool no matter what the surface. You find yourself rolling through holes that you'd avoid on most gravel bikes, and if you hit something larger than expected, well, it's never too much of a big deal. The result of that assured ride is that you sometimes find yourself hanging on to speed just that little bit longer than you otherwise might, and you don't do any of that just in case braking that you might otherwise do to stay out of trouble. You notice this especially on the descents, of course, but it's also noticeable on bumpy, rooty and rocky flat sections too. Of course, the big 2.4 inch tyres help a lot here, but even if you swap them for something skinnier, and I've tried that, the Cascade is a really steady customer. You can go bigger too. Swap these Hunt wheels for a set of 650Bs, and you can fit up to a 3-inch tyre at the front and a 2.8 at the back. Bigger tyres of course mean you're much more likely to stay rubber side down and in control on the bridleways and through the woods, even in muddy conditions, and we've all encountered plenty of those recently. Confident, that's the first word that comes to mind when you ride this bike. With its long wheelbase, relaxed head tube angle and a big tyre up front, this is probably the most stable and confidence-inspiring adventure stroke gravel bike that I've ever ridden. Let's dive into that geometry a bit more. The Cascade is built to what Cotic calls its sure shot geometry, a development of its long shot mountain bike geometry, but for drop bars. This means that frames are long, intended for use with short stems, which give you a more direct steering feel. The Cascade comes in 4 different sizes, from small to XL. The seat tube angle is 74 degrees across the board, and the head tube angle is much slacker at 68 or 69 degrees depending on the frame size. This large size model that we've got here has a 505mm seat tube, which is very short for the size of the frame because the top tube slows quite steeply, as you can see. The head tube is very short, but you need to bear in mind that Cotic Alpaca rigid fork up front is very long. It's 483mm, and that brings the front end up considerably. Cotic chose to develop the frame around such a long fork because it gives the option of fitting a 100mm suspension fork without altering the geometry too much. Overall then, the stack is a tall 633mm, while the reach is 432mm, giving a stack over reach of 1.47. That's slightly offset by the fact that Cotic advises a 60 to 70mm stem on this frame size. The short stem means that the distance to the controls isn't as far as you might imagine. Get down on the drops of Cotic's Valley flared handlebar and you can find yourself an efficient enough ride position. But with your hands up top or on the hoods, it's a pretty relaxed setup. The chainstays are long, they're 438mm to give plenty of room for these big tyres. And that means the wheelbase is also long at 1136mm. This is the sort of setup that most people could handle for long stints without the need to be cracked back into shape by a chiropractor at the end of it. That's going to be especially welcome if you're riding for multiple days, for example, when niggling aches can really start to take the fun out of things. And for long days out, there are also all sorts of mounts. So try to tot up the number of bosses on this bike and chances are you're going to lose count somewhere along there. They're everywhere, so you can fit racks, mud guards, lots of bottle cages, top tube bags, frame bags, you name it. You get some gravel bikes that have a roadie DNA, such as the super fast and lightweight Willier Rave SLR that I reviewed recently, and some that have their roots in mountain biking. The numbers back up the ride experience here. The Cotic Cascade is definitely among the latter. It doesn't come with a pair of baggy shorts, but perhaps it should. There are loads of bikes out there that are quicker off the mark and out of tight turns than the Cascade, but this is a whole lot of fun for all sorts of different types of terrain. You don't get mountain bike handling here, but the Cascade is long way from being a road bike with a false moustache. The Cascade frame set will set you back £849. Obviously, this is the kind of frame that you could build up at 100 different ways, depending on what you want to use it for. Cotic says that it's good for a stripped down desert racer with carbon rigid forks, or an overlander with a steel fork and a bunch of luggage, or a drop bar mountain bike with a 100mm suspension fork and a dropper post. Our review bike here is mostly Cotic's bronze level build, which is £2,099. It's spec'd with microshift Advent 10-speed transmission with an 11 to 48 tooth cassette and a 36 tooth race face chainring on Eastern EA90 cranks. With the 2.4 inch tyres it's got fitted, this gives a gear range of 21 inches right up to 96 inches. That low gear should get you up most off-road climbs and you're unlikely to spin out on the flat at the other end of the cassette. If you wanted even lower gearing for shifting heavy loads, for example, you could just go for a smaller chainring. Micro shift's method of shifting takes a bit of getting used to, but it functions really well, especially considering its low price. The microshift levers pull cables for braking, so this bike comes with Shimano mechanical disc brakes. Only one pad moves when you brake, meaning that rotor rub can be an issue, especially if you like the brakes to engage early in the lever stroke. Hydraulic brakes are certainly better, and you'd get them on the gold build of this bike, which comes with Shimano GRX shifting and braking and costs £2,699. There will be a silver build with SRAM Apex 1 components later in the year when the SRAM boat finally gets here. You can see that our review bike has a bike yoke Divine dropper post fitted. You don't get that as standard on Cotic's bronze build. The dropper means that rather than nervously tiptoeing down technical off-road descents, you can lower your centre of gravity and plough through faster and more confidently. Do you need a dropper post on a gravel adventure bike? Well, need is strong, but the scarier the descent, the more of a fan you'll become. I have to say, on a bike like this, it's a welcome addition. So that's the overview of the new Cotic Cascade. We've really enjoyed riding it here at road.cc, so watch out for our full review on the site soon. Can you see a bike like this in your future? Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this first ride. Thanks very much for watching.